Congrats on being a nerd and being proud of it, because this is some ultra nerd shit. I love it. So
Yeah.
you do a little bit too much stuff with the computer already during work, and then it bleeds over into real life, or
Um, I just need to organize stuff like this because if not, I just get really disorganized and it's really hard for me to see where to go next. So it's just really helpful for me personally.
yeah, the game has been moving in the direction of just complicating things, right? It's not just enough the individual systems within the game on like how to upgrade, but it's on top of that, like the amount of characters you need to manage and all the limits, right? The
Yeah,
time you have and the amount of times you can do things.
yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like a boss drops me a flame. I don't know who to use it on, so it's just really nice to look at flame scores and be like, actually, I can just throw it on this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's that FOMO as well of everything having just a timer on it, like all the drops, right?
Yep, yep, exactly. That too. That also adds to it.
And then you can buy them in the game, so you kind of have an idea of what their value actually is. So then it feels worse if you let it expire. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, once you get to a certain point, you're actually more likely to mess up your existing potential or flame rather than improve it. So then you need to like reassess every time. Yep.
Yep, yep, yep. You know exactly what the
Yep.
struggle is.
Oh yeah, I've been I've been around the block a few times. Yeah. So, you've got some big questions. Give me a little bit of a sketch of like how you're playing the game and what I can do for you today.
So I've been mostly duo progressing with a friend of mine. We just took down normal lucid yesterday, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice achievement. And I really enjoy like low stat bossing, so like pushing the limit of like a character and like doing like a 28-minute run or something. It sounds kind
Gotcha.
of crazy, but I think it's fun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I did it on my Buccaneer recently at like 9K stat or something, and it was like a 29-minute fight.
Like Lotus and
And then
Damien, or
yeah, Lotus and Damien, both of them, they were both
mm-hmm.
like 25-plus minute fights, and
Damn, yeah.
it was
Limit
it
testing.
was long. It was long, yeah, but I had fun. I'm not gonna be doing it every week for money because it's not worth it, but it was just a fun
No.
little thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. That for
But
that first clear, it's good practice, and it's just good to know where your
hmm
character stands, right? And then I try to tell people as well, if you do that one really slow clear, every single week
hmm
that you do, or that you do end up switching to soloing or whatever, you can really feel how much progress you've made. Because if you're blowing up a
yep.
boss in like 15 seconds, or you blow it up in 12 seconds, it doesn't really feel much of a
hmm
difference. But that's
Yep.
a 1/5. That's like 20% faster, right? But if you're doing
Yeah.
25 minutes, you're doing 20% faster. Well, now it's only a 20-minute run, so now it's suddenly like that's a huge that's a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Yep.
could
Exactly. Yeah.
you could feel that. So
So
that's what you're
yeah,
doing,
that
and you're duo progressing, and you're both like around what stage of the game are you now? You're
we're
like,
we're both about equal. We're both trying to like step into arcane gear. So we just beat normal lucid. So
mm-hmm.
I guess our next step up would try to be learn will because we haven't practiced will yet. And then after learning will, just get into normal will and try to maybe push into like harder fights, like hard will, hard lucid, to try to get arcane gear out of that.
Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, with so typically hard lucid is a bit faster, but that's also mostly for
hmm
people who are doing like full party runs. If you're staying as a
Yep.
duo, there's some boss changes upcoming, right? I don't know if you're keeping up with all of that.
I did hear about that, but I don't know what they're changing personally.
So most of the boss changes have already kind of gone through. Some of the extra stuff is just like extra glitches that got fixed. The main
Mm.
thing with Lucid and Will that's changing is that for phase 3 for hard Lucid, they're increasing the HP a bit, but they're taking away the part where like the last HP bar gets like stuck for a while, and then she heals and then it goes down again. So it'll be more like a constant sweep.
Okay,
So
okay,
if
yeah.
so, if you have the damage, it'll be a more clean progression through the HP bars, and a bunch of your damage isn't just gonna get like soaked up by that second to last HP bar, and possibly, the pausing of that might cost you the run. And the thing they're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
for Will is that you don't have to wait like the set amount of time for the tests anymore, but instead you basically just immediately trigger the test when you take the HP bars down. And if you fail the test, instead of like resetting the clock on it, it'll just heal him half of the HP that you did, so you have to redo half the damage essentially. But then it immediately triggers again once you reach the lower HP.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really nice for Will actually, yeah.
Yeah, because
So
right now, like even on the characters that I solo all my stuff with, I don't solo Will because of the temporary barriers and stuff, and it's just too annoying. It just takes forever. But with those changes, I will
yeah,
definitely be taking hard Will back in rotation. Well, especially because the two characters I would run on, they have a book and they have full 22 arcane. So it's like I'm
mm,
really just doing it for the mezzo. But then, yeah, like you said before, you're basically getting into the situation where running with a 6 mana running solo is almost the same length of a run, and it doesn't really help.
yeah,
It's not really worth the money
yeah.
at that point. I might run like half of a bossing mule in the same time, which is like 600 mil, 700 mil.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's not worth it. But that would be cool. In general, it's been long overdue for that to change. But until that time comes, you'll have to deal with the current system of will. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've done some research on that already on will.
I've looked up some guides on it. I haven't gone into a practice run, but I've seen guides on it, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the most research I've done right now on it.
Yeah, under the will command, I have a few like mini games that somebody made, like those Scratch, I think. Yeah, Scratch mini games. It takes like forever to load because it's not really like the proper format for it. But basically, you have
Hmm.
like a recording of the run in the background, and you can kind of move around the character with the same speed as you would. And it can kind of show you like what do the patterns look like what is the size of the hitboxes, when do you get hit, when do you not get hit, kind of thing. Because it's kind of two things in one. It's one, you're fighting the boss, and the other thing, you have like the moonlight system in the background
Hmm.
that you need to activate at the right time to support you playing the boss fight properly. And managing the moonlight is like half the battle. Oh, and moonlight is also changing in a future change, where right now the way that it works in hard will is if you get hit by anything, your moonlight stops regenerating for, I think it's like 3 or 4 seconds. It's quite a long time. So
Hmm.
if you get hit like every 4 seconds, you just don't get any moonlight, which will most likely happen because there's a bunch of shit trying to hit you.
Yeah.
So they're changing it that the general generation of moonlight goes down, but the pause in between like getting hit and restarting is cut down by like 50%. So if you're somewhat better at dodging, you'll actually gain more moonlight. If you're horrible at dodging, you'll still gain nothing. So then nothing really changes for you.
Hmm.
So if you get better now with the practice, then you'll definitely feel the change and be able to. It's mostly for people being able to solo in P3 because there it's very difficult with the webs. I know you've probably seen a run already, right? With like the webs
Yeah.
closing in and mainly soloing.
Hmm.
Even up until now, you have to be really strong. Mainly be able to like do one really good burst and then keep the map clear and then do another big burst and then kind of kill it in that second burst. Otherwise, the map will just
Yeah.
fill up with webs, completely seal you, and there's just no chance of clearing the
Yeah.
boss anymore. Yeah. But 6 job, those changes, that'll open up a whole lot of options.
Yeah. Okay. That seems really helpful though for these will resources I didn't know they existed. So that's really nice.
Yeah, one is a video of me kind of like talking through it. It's not really with visuals though, and then the other, they're just like small little mini games that over the years somebody just like sent to me, and yeah, they're really cool just to get a feel for it. I sent them to my mom as well when she was like struggling with stuff, just to jump around in it. Like it can only help. You can't really, yeah, you don't really lose any strategy from it, but it'll just help you.
Yeah. That's really appreciated. Yeah, because I used to play Final Fantasy,
Hmm.
so they had like a simulator that you would simulate older fights like this. So
Oh,
having
okay.
resources like this is really nice.
Yeah.
Kind of it helps you practice like because in that game there's like fights that are like 5 phases long. So it's like how do you practice phase 4 specifically?
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
would
I
have
wish.
simulators
Yeah,
that let you practice stuff like that. So that was a
yeah,
little bit of a concern for me with Will. Like, how
yeah,
do I practice like, the last phase or something
yeah, for sure.
without having to go through? So having these resources is really appreciated.
Yeah, I've been an advocate for like phase practice modes for a while, but I mean, we're only now getting practice mode for like only in the last update did we get practice mode for all the bosses we actually have now. So I guess that's the first step
Mhm.
they had to do. A true like
Yeah,
boss simulator and everything. That's yeah, because like how do you tell people like what do I want to main, and then it's like, oh, but by the way, in 250 levels you're gonna hate this boss fight on this character, by the way, and it's like, and that's gonna be the
yep,
most important boss fight in your life for like 4 months. It's like, okay, well,
yep,
surprise, surprise when that comes around. Yeah, that's a bit tricky. You know. But yeah, this is the closest thing you have to
yeah.
phase practicing, which is not too
Better
bad.
than nothing, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Just better than nothing.
Yep.
Um, and other than that, you guys are just like trucking along, pretty busy in real life. Not like super diehard gaming, but mostly just duoing.
Yeah, we're mostly just doing like we do Lucid and Slime together. Everything else before that we just solo
Mm-hmm.
at this point because we have the damage for it now.
Yeah.
So that's mostly what we do now. and I know we want to push Will, so that's obviously I'll share this resources with him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you can go
And
2 for 1 here.
yeah, yeah, I kind of dual main my Arc and DA, kind of like
What
somebody
a
might know.
what a weird combo. Yeah, why would you do
I
that?
know, right?
DA and
But
Arc, who does that? Yeah.
I don't know. There's someone who just hates himself or
Yeah,
something.
some weirdo, yeah. Okay. And is that so? At the moment, the DA is mostly just like a bossing mule.
Kind of at the moment, I kind of started pushing it to like more as like a secondary main, like maybe 1 month ago, kind of just doing dailies on it. It was like 210 like 2 weeks ago, just doing dailies got it to 230, which is kind of
Yeah,
funny.
you're at the point just like dailies, Monster Park, and then any event EXP you have, you slam it on, and before you
Yep.
know, a character will be 250 as well. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
and then it's suddenly
That's
only
kind of what
like
I've been doing
a
now.
few levels away from your main. And you're like, oh,
Yep.
better step on it for the main because everything's
Yeah.
getting so close. Yeah, yeah, that happens for sure.
hmm
And that's probably also because the main, all the projects on the main are starting to get so expensive that you feel like you can
Yeah.
comparatively make way more gains on a side character, right? Rather than
Yeah.
throw it on the main.
I dropped like I think I dropped like 2 bill and got like almost everything on my DA to 16 star, and I was like, okay, like,
Yeah.
and my main is struggling to get something to 17 star and 2 bill right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just kind of just get that dopamine in, get the fast little rank ups.
Yeah, yeah. How has it been with events? Have you been able to hit any of the major events, or are you kind of like coasting through them?
I've been trying to hit everything like as much as I can. I think I've been hitting everything possible. Like I've been hitting all the 6 star, all the chapters. I've completed 1 to 3 already, so it's been
Mm-hmm.
nice. So the nodes, the fake arcane weapon went to my Ilium as a boss meal, so that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The legendary event ring, everything, all of that's been kind of thrown around all my characters to kind of help get my account stronger.
Yeah,
But
whoever needs
not really
something.
investing that much money. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's kind of like the trickle down, the cascade of resources that I usually refer to, where starting up bossing duels kind of just gives you those resources that just trickle down to the next one,
hmm
and then it helps fund that one more organically, and then also makes it so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're like take like a month or two just away from the game to just fund mules, and then after those 2 months you feel like every single week you have to do them, otherwise all of those months and all of that money was for nothing. So
Yep.
if you do it more organically, you'll feel more of the growth, and you'd be like, okay, I'm noticing that like every single week I have to like do 2 or 3 more characters on Wednesday, and I kind of don't want to do that. It's too much pressure. Then you know that you're like cool for now, and at most you can build out the existing characters you have, or maybe even drop a bossing
hmm
mule, right?
Yep.
Instead of just keep on adding more and then just adding that pressure, because there's like we talked at the very beginning, there's already so much pressure with the timing on everything and the limits on everything, and a lot
Yeah.
of things is like if you sell 170 crystals, a lot of people just see it as 10 lost crystals rather than 170 gained crystals. It's really a
Yep.
perspective that will that could really fuck with you if you let it.
Yeah. I just try to play characters I like and enjoy playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really just my thing. So all like the little mules and stuff I have are just characters that I enjoy playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I haven't really found like a sixth character that I like playing, so I'm just fine with these five, and maybe the Hyperburn in the future will be the sixth character that I
Yeah,
probably do
exactly.
bosses on.
Burns will come on, or a character
hmm
that you're training for Legion will actually get to 200, and you're like, oh, actually, this fifth job is really cool, and then you kind of just keep
hmm
going.
Yep.
All right, so you had some specific questions.
Yeah, so I heard there's like a Shining coming up in the future, and I know
Mm-hmm.
it's like sometime in November, so I just don't really know, like, is it just worth it now to like save really hard now, like all the income I have, just hard save it? Or is it like, should I keep going for more meso gear, like drop gear? Because I'm only at 40% meso, and like
Mm-hmm.
I know I need 60% more, so when I'm farming, I can get more meso. Like, is that worth it in the investment so that I can get more money and so on?
Yeah, just generally, I would say on your main character that you're leveling, I would always go for meso and drop gear. Generally,
hmm
for most people, I would advise it to like around when you're like level 220 to 25, around that part is usually when you can kind of feel like I am going to level this character and I like it and I'm going to keep going with it. And starting from that point, I would mainly work on like WSE potential, and then
Mm-hmm.
getting drop and meso set right after that. I kind of like let all the other stuff kind of like sit and just wait for backups and wait for that money to start rolling in from the drop in the meso gear. And then, because you need those weeks to get backups anyway, and then when you have an event
Mm-hmm.
and you made some money, then you can start making some upgrades and get to 17 star. Usually that's a good idea for your first character, because you just can't really start with 10 bossing mules and start relying on that income. So that first character will need to fund itself, and probably the second character as well. And then with that, once the first character usually like hits around like level 260 or something, then you're probably going to think about moving out of like a training ability, one that has maybe meso and drop in it, or at least kind of like a mix of damage and training, and then move into like more of a damaging ability. And because by that time, hopefully you've built out more of a bossing mule situation where you have at least like 5 or 6 characters that can generate weekly income. And then
Mm-hmm.
the way you want to look at it is just like the percentage of your total income, most likely, is going to be coming way more from the bossing mules than from your main. So rolling away from like a ability that's more, centered around gains from mobbing is not going to be as bad for your character and for your total gains. And getting damage instead is going to be more beneficial for when you're doing those bosses.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So if you don't have that yet, and because it's like 2 months
Mm-hmm.
away for Shining most likely, and Cube Sale, if we get it, is usually also like around
Yeah.
Cyber Monday or like around that time, like Friday. So that's usually end of November as well. I'd say that you can definitely benefit if you don't have the full drop in Meso gear. Kind of similar situation like the situation 2 days ago, right? It was level 254 Nightwalker. Also didn't really have his like full drop in Meso gear. Just want to definitely make sure that your WSE is in a good situation, so that because what most likely happens if you don't go for drop in Meso gear, people get kind of baited in rolling for a lot of stat on their accessories, and then that
Yeah.
makes you stronger, but that also makes you rely for your damage on the accessories. Which means that when you do switch to drop in Meso gear, you're going to lose damage and possibly lose kill potential there. So I usually like
Yeah.
to move from like epic accessories right into drop in Meso gear, so that you stay the same or even go up in damage, like 6 or 9%, it goes to 6 or 9%, right? So it stays roughly the same. And that you learn within your character not to rely on the damage from the accessories, that the accessories early on are just there for the utility. And for the damage, you learn to rely on your WSE, on your Legion and your Link skills, like that whole clump. And you learn to rely on like your boost nodes and, all the other stuff like hyperstats. And then once you start funding into like the hybrid gears, so the stuff that you wear for both drop rate and for meso sets, like the CRA, the Abso, all that stuff will get stronger, and then that will help you keep up that together with the symbols and together with the nodes leveling will help you keep up with the damage requirements of the areas, and not so much the accessories. You really only want to go hard on the accessories basically when you're switching into like a full superior Golic set, and then you want to make separate sets for like drop and meso. And what's going to happen then is that some attack pieces are probably going to fall off, and those will become like extra drop rate pieces, so that you can go for sets over 80% drop, and then you can start getting more drops, more backups, essentially, right? Like the Dominator rings, Dominator pendants, kind of treasure rings, or Dominator rings, both, whatever clump, slime rings, those kind of things, because they're terribly rare without all that.
Okay, yeah. That all makes sense, because I think with my full just meso and drop gear on, I'm rocking like 100 drop and 40 meso. So yeah, right down below there, below the greed pendant, you can see all my drop gear. You can see everything that I have. So I feel like I need to switch some things over to meso probably, just so I can get the full meso and get money from grinding out my main.
Yeah, what I usually do is just, if things are already legendary, yes, you've got, do you have 9 pieces with lines on them? You've got quite a lot of drop, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of drop right now. Definitely have a lot. I think it is about 9.
You have an earring with, you don't have an old earring with a line, right?
No, I don't have an earring. I have a reinforced earring in my storage that was probably gonna make into just a drop gear, but I just have the solid one for now. I could probably make that into drop, honestly.
Oh, it's a solid one. Yeah, if a solid one is already
Yeah, it's a
unique,
solid one.
make that into drop. Well, into meso, right? If you
Into meso, yeah.
Yeah, so just like you see your WSE as like one clump of potential, and you're trying to balance out, between attack, between boss and IED. You want to see all of your accessories as one clump as well. You want to get 5 lines drop. 5 lines mezzo, 4 lines drop, right? Because 9 pieces, 9 lines. And then if you end up with more drop, like that's okay. But just look at whatever has drop and does not have any stat, and then just re-roll that for mezzo, so that hopefully at the end you come out with 5 and 4 pieces, and everything or most of the pieces also have 1 line of ad break ends in 3. Oh my god, did I just throw a 3-minute ad break? Fucking Twitch is messing with my steez. Hang on. Did they just change my ad? What? Automatic length and frequency. No. Oh my god. I don't want 3-minute clumps of that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know they said that they had automatic was enabled, but I didn't know that they were just going to overwrite what I had. Dude, 3-minute clumps of ads is the worst thing. Okay. Okay, that should fix that. Sorry, guys. Okay, well, good luck to all the non-subs in the chat. You're going to be stuck behind a wall for a while. Okay, or maybe I ended them. I don't even know at this point. Okay. Yeah, so... Or was it? Yeah, so that hopefully everything comes out with at least like 1 line of strength. Because, 9 pieces all with 9%, that's an extra 81% strength, right? It's not like you don't want to rely on them for the strength. But 81% strength goes a long way, especially early on. So that will take a lot of weight off of the other pieces to have to overperform. So that's where we want to be at. And then that character can make its own money, get its own backups. And yeah, maybe I'm saying that maybe not entirely re-roll the drop rate for mezzo.
Yeah.
If you have some pieces that are close, maybe see if you can add mezzo on top of it, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because I was kind of like my issue. Like I have a lot of drop rate pieces, and it's like, do I just switch them? Like I have 4 event rings or 3 event rings with item drop. Like, do I switch just 1 or 2 of them? But or do I just go like get like a horntail ring and make that into me? So or like
I would
treasure
do.
Ring
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would do more like that because, like the event rings will eventually be drop rate rings, but right now they're also potentially your strongest rings, and they're not doing much for you right now with that drop rate. Like. So one thing is like if you don't really need the damage, if your mobbing is still fine like this, then just keep it like this. And if the bossing is still like you're saying like, well, we're doing long runs, but we're kind of doing that on purpose and we like that, then like don't change it. But if you're like, I do need damage, and you have these very strong event rings that are together giving you 0% strength, there's potentially like very easily like 42% strength to gain there. So that could be a boost up if you do need that damage. But until then, if you don't need it, they're going to give you more kind of treasure rings, more dominators, more primals, maybe a slime ring, right? And that'll set you up for the future better. But what I'm looking at is like I think there's a lot of time going into like a lot of crystals that might not be entirely worth your time. Like a lot of daily bossing.
Those dailies are really just there for me to fill out if I really want to do them. I don't do the dailies that often.
Okay.
I'll probably just do all the dailies on like my arc and call it a day. It's mostly there for I can see like the potential that I can get, but the weekly ones are mostly more important.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, because the thing with Maple is that it wants you to just play the game all the time, every day. And if you do like little dailies here and there, it doesn't seem like much. But if you add all of that time up together, it ends up coming out to a really big total. And before you know it, you're spending like an extra 2, 3, 4 hours a week just on like very small things that seem like it's nothing. But then if you grind out 4 hours a week on your and you have drop and mezzo gear on, you might make more money and you might make EXP on the character as well at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you don't like grinding, then the alternative is good. But if you're okay with grinding a little bit, and you're like, but like you don't have the time, sometimes you can get the time by just scraping a little bit of dailies off here and there that are just, because they're just so in your face. Like, hey, do this daily, but like, no, yeah, you have to kind of say no sometimes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you play 24/7. Game, Lord knows the game wants you to.
Yeah. Well, it's just there for me. to mess around with for the daily calculator if I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
want
yeah.
to do it.
No, I see, I see.
Mostly it.
Yeah, so I'd probably look into those rings and just kind of like see what you roll, right? Ideally, you don't roll like 3-line strength on a Silver Blossom ring or on a Treasure John.
Yeah.
But then if you do, then there you're just temporarily your damage gear, and then you can just re-roll it later.
Yeah.
Anything like over 21% on Legendary, I wouldn't roll over. Up to 21, I would roll over because that's like relatively easy to roll. But if it's over that, I would keep it and then just adjust as you have other pieces that can fill in the role. Does that answer your question on the drop and the meso stuff, or you still have additional questions?
That answers, I think, all of it, because I'm trying to push my arc to 260 before New Age, just so I can mostly start dailies again.
Yay!
Yeah,
I've missed those.
To do more dailies.
Yeah, love it.
But also just so when New Age drops, I can just experience the new content if I can get into it. The new 6 job, just kind of have that available to me.
Yeah, it's gonna be enough
Mostly
to have one
that.
character. Some people are like, "Oh, you're gonna make that one 6 job, this one 6 job." And like, I don't know if I want to have like 5 characters ready for 6 job when 6 job comes out. Like, just funding it, like trying to grind it out on one character is already gonna be probably a little bit of a nightmare. So.
Yeah, that's what
I know what the value is. I mean, I'll get like that one 6 job skill, right? And that'll be a huge buff, but like it's got to be just that for a long time until I can get to another character.
Yeah.
And then so this will also help kind of feel out what the second character still needs after those changes, because it's very possible that the second character is like, okay, this is like with the addition of the arc and it funding itself, that the second character is in a good enough position if you again, like keep adding boss mules as long as you can. Or maybe it's not enough and maybe the second character needs to get Meso gear as well. But most likely what will happen is that the second character, or definitely a third character if you go for that, will just need drop rate gear, because then the income for the account is already there. So you're really just focusing on getting backups as soon as possible.
Yeah, okay. That was kind of my plan with the DA, because I didn't want to really grind on it that intensively. So
yeah, and you see the way that you're grinding as well. You're not really in maps killing monsters, so that Meso obtain isn't really doing much either way, right? You're doing like dailies. What part of your EXP is really you killing monsters, and what part is you just handing in the daily quest, or like doing Monster Park, or getting event EXP. The percentage of efficiency on the meso gear would be like, would be just so bad. So that's why you lose that value there. Yeah, ideally you get your drop rate familiar quickly, right? Because that would be a big buff. So far you got a 20 IED
and some healing. That's the best I've gotten from 250 to 253. Yeah, familiars are just like that.
I mean, that's not too bad for just like those 3 levels. Did you see any like just increases drop rate? Nothing else?
I have a small drop and like a 15% IED. That's what I've gotten. And I think a regular meso as well.
Yeah, the regular meso. Are you familiar with meso and drop rate and the stacking and all that?
I know the IED stacks. I know item drop rate does not stack, but I'm not sure about the meso.
Yeah, so I made this thing. Sorry, it's very bright for you, probably. No dark mode here. Sorry. So put on your sunglasses. Your what are those? Your Gunnars, like those yellow gamer glasses. Yeah.
I
know
what you mean.
Yeah. But essentially, your so drop rate and meso drop rate are typically just clumped together. Like meso drop rate is just the drop rate for items, which is a meso bag is an item kind of thing. But for familiars, they're split. So that's why you see that division there. And then both of those are completely separate from meso obtain, right? So meso obtain is how much is inside a bag, and then meso drop rate or item drop rate would be the chance of getting an item like a bag or not, in case it's familiar. The stacking is basically it looks at whatever is the largest percentage. So this talks a little bit more about like what goal you have. So you want to get to 66.67% item drop rate, and this if you can get this amount of item drop rate bonus without meso drop rate, then you already have 100% chance of a bag to drop from every monster. So then you don't need any additional meso drop rate. It'll just won't do anything.
Okay.
So if you don't have this amount, then Meso Drop Rate can help you get to the amount. So you can think of some people might go for like super damage set, all damage gear if they're trying to go into Cernium so that they can kill there.
Mm-hmm.
That might lower their drop rate under this amount, and then having a item drop rate, a Meso Drop Rate familiar might help you still get to 100%. And you know, because how much damage are you really going to get from familiars when you're mobbing? Usually it's like one character has like a line of 3% attack or something, or like a little bit of percentage main stat, but those are typically not helping you with mobbing very much. They're mostly helping you with bossing, right? So that'll help you get that 100% drop rate and keep that. So here I talk a little bit about, you know, going more for meso drop rate as you're making more characters in your account because you want your income to come more from bossing mules rather than from the meso obtain from your grinding. And here are all the percentages. So basically, if a buff or a familiar shows up in the top right, that means it's interfering with something, and you have to be careful for stacking and stuff. So that's where the item drop rate goes, meso drop rate. That's where some of the stat gain goes. But when it comes to the healing, that doesn't show up as a buff. That's just an effect that happens every X amount of time, and that can just happen as much. So you can have three familiars on, each with 2 lines of healing on like 6 characters, and all of that will just like stack on top of each other. And that's why certain bosses like Hard Will and Hard Hilla have very different kind of level difficulty. If you look at like, you know, in game at the boss content, like in which order the bosses pop up, some of those seem a little bit out of order. Like, you know, and Hard Hilla being here like above Hard Darknell, like that doesn't make any sense. But that's just because of the healing fams, and that really makes the boss very, well, way less difficult, but like very different in difficulty. Let's like say it, not dynamically, yeah. The other word. Yeah, so here you can see all the percentages. You can always double check because there's some variance, right? Sometimes familiars will have the exact same word letters, but it'll be a different percentage. But you can always summon them and look at your your window, right? But so some of them might be inaccurate in the sense that it'll say item drop rate, and then it'll increase your item drop rate in your stat window, but then that won't apply to meso drop rate, even though the other item drop rate also shows up the exact same way in the stat window, and that does apply to meso drop rate. So you have to be aware of the difference there.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know how that meso drop rate worked like that, so
yeah,
it's good to know that now.
But if you have like, you know, you have your holy symbol at high level, you have some on your inner-ability, and you have some on your lines on your potential, then you're like always good, because that 67% is like pretty quickly you'll get to that point.
Yeah.
And then the exception is like the item acquisition plus 10% and meso drop rate, meso obtain 10% or something. Wait, do I not have that one here? But those basically go in the same stack as your equipment potential. So they abide by the same maxes there, 100% and 200%, and they just add up to that. So if you're already capped on your equips, then those don't do anything extra. Yeah, there's like someone in chat mentions like auto steal. I don't know if you know about that, but
yeah, I do know about that. I've learned about that recently, about auto steal.
That's pretty min-maxy on the on the top end.
Yeah.
But that's one of those other things that you can kind of throw in on your familiars when you're mobbing for like a little bit extra, because it's not really hurting anything, right? You're not going to pop 30% boss or 20% IED when you're mobbing. That's not really going to help you, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if I'm over-explaining, just let me know, and like, I got it, you know?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all good.
All right. So yeah, so I go meso drop rate first, because Shining Starforce is still pretty far away. You're making decent. Do you know your weekly income?
It's about like 5 bill. Like 2 bill comes from the daily bosses on the calculator, so about 5.
Yeah, so like depending on how much you're training, essentially, right?
Yeah, and then I probably bring in an extra 1 to 2 bill a week, depending on how much I train.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next on here? Get 21 CRA. So that's like specifically like the upgrade path for the
for Shining. Yeah. I don't know what to do during Shining, because obviously everyone always talks about like 21 star, 22 star and stuff, but obviously I know the idea of like stepping up to 19 star, and a lot of things can give you more damage than just one random 22 star. So it's just like, on specifically on the arc, it's like, what do I really really do on it to push it on the shiny. Do I go for the 21? Do I just get 19 CRA and then get 19 on other stuff? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really where I'm stuck on. I don't know what to make my little goal for shiny to do.
Yeah, so I think a first good goal is to try to get all the realistic pieces to 17. So if you can get full superior by then, that would be great.
I should have full superior by
Mm-hmm.
then. I am about 300 coins in on my earring, and I have my pendant just chilling there right now. So
Okay, yeah.
I haven't gotten an earring drop, so goal is just like that sometimes. So I'm just
Yeah,
waiting for the coins on it.
yeah. So I would say that's like a high importance dailies right now, which is like
Hmm.
normal arc and helix, like by far.
Yeah.
And then almost before symbols, I would say, but like probably on the same level as symbols. Like if you could do anything during the day, do those things, and then maybe some events that are going on with like good rewards, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so I would just try to get all of that stuff to 17 and to at least like unique 2-line or or up to legendary, but probably stay with like a lot of unique stuff and invest more into star forcing at that point.
Hmm.
And as long as your
I
WSC is legendary and has good lines, and your so probably reroll the secondary, right? If there's like cubing to be done, because there's good potential
hmm
there for more damage. And your weapon right now is
it's the fake
it's the
axle.
fake weapon. Yeah. So you're hoping if you
Yeah.
can jump right up into arcane.
Yeah. So that was also a big thing I was going to ask you on. Like, is it worth
Mm-hmm.
making a real Absol right now, or is it because I'm not pushing hard lucid yet? So
Mm-hmm.
getting a weapon box is not going to be possible for a little bit. So it's like, is this fake weapon holding me back for the dual progression specifically? I'm being able to push a hard lucid. That's also a big thing that I'm not 100% certain on.
Mm-hmm. It's always a question of, do you need the damage, right? So for mobbing, do you feel like
Hmm.
you're in any kind of problem for damage, or
No,
you can just kill everything cleanly?
Mobby and I one shot everything
Yep.
with my full drop on. I one shot
Mm-hmm.
everything, so it's no
Okay.
concern on mobbing.
And for bossing, you're doing normal.
Normal lucid. It took us about 20 minutes to duel it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the main question is there, like, do you guys feel like because you're getting like 1 to 2 drops most of the time, right?
Yeah, we got 2 yesterday. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. But you'll need, what is it, 24?
yeah, it's 24 for the weapon. So
Yeah. So that's like
it's
at least 12 weeks of running, anywhere from like 12 to
yeah,
24 weeks. That is
yeah,
quite a
that's a long
while.
time. Yeah.
You definitely gain a lot of damage for making like a real weapon.
Yeah.
Because you can roll the pot and then just some percentage attack there will make a big difference. So
Yeah.
you'll have to discuss this like with your dual partner. Like, how do we feel about that? Are we both gonna make like a similar investment? Like, do they have a fake weapon as well, or do they have a real weapon?
Um, I'm actually not certain. I think they have a real weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess, but I'm not 100% certain. I'd have to ask him.
I think you just have to discuss this together and be like,
Hmm.
how do we see this? Like, do we want those runs to be faster? Because just it is possible that with the jump, well, with the jump up, you'll definitely have access to like hard lucid, but probably not in a duo, right? But right now, you'd also have
Yeah.
access to hard lucid, but also just not in a duo. You just need to to
Yeah.
do a bigger party. So you could say we're gonna do
Hmm.
hard lucid in a bigger party for a bit until we can both afford a weapon, and then just go back to duoing it again with the weapon, and then maybe do like a combination of normal lucid, normal will until you get strong enough to do hard lucid, and then normal will, and then maybe move
Yeah.
up to hard lucid, hard will, something like that. But it depends on how much you're
Hmm.
married to the whole, like, we want to just duo the thing together, or we'll duo it if it's convenient, and if it's not convenient and it's holding us back too much, then we can just do whatever kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's kind of just been a convenience thing because we kind
Like
of like
timing and
never
everything.
really. Yeah, it's kind of just like when I'm around and he's around, we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
just playing at the same time, and it's like let's just do this boss together.
Yep.
Kind of just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we both come from Final Fantasy and we both have experiences of trying to make parties like statics,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's always a shit show with everyone's schedule and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think me and him just wanted to avoid it
Yeah,
this
yeah, I
time
get that.
around.
Yeah, well, you do have more access now with the bossing.
So the
The
party finder.
Yeah, the party finder is, because of the nerf to the carrying and everything. Way more people actually trying to find parties now, and it's one of those
Hmm.
things where if more people just put down postings, then more parties will just happen there. People just have to get into the habit of going there to check. And once that happens more, you'll just have much more flow through of people listing and doing the parties and everything there.
Yeah, okay.
And if you're starting with a duo, then people are like, oh, I can join that party, rather than it's just one guy like looking for 5 people to carry me. You know, not in those words, but sometimes it looks like that.
Yeah, I know
Versus
exactly.
like, you know, looking for 2 more people. Because there's probably other duos out there as well who are like, yeah, we can do a normal for a month or 3. Or we can, if you put 2 duos together, you might be able to have the damage for hard. Well, because right now, if you're taking 20 minutes to duo normal, you're definitely not at the damage for hard yet. Like for 6 men, maybe, because of synergy benefits and everything. But there's still a lot of damage there to be gained before hard. But, you know, it's going to be a combination of everything, right? It's not like you just need to spend 20 bill on equips, but it's probably just a little bit of symbols, a little bit of levels, a little bit of matrix, a little bit of hyperstats, a little bit of all of that stuff synergizing with each other.
Okay, I definitely need to talk about probably seeing if we can just see how a hard lucid run would go. Maybe get a BA out of me and him, because I haven't done one. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he has. I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Just to get one. Yeah. It's always good to do a little bit of an update to see, because it changes very quickly in the beginning.
Yeah, it does.
Although now, you know, it might feel like you don't want to like downplay your achievements, but like if you look back in like 6 months or a year and you look at this account, you'd be like, oh my god, I had nothing.
Oh yeah.
And like getting something to legendary is just a matter of like clicking a few times, and now it's like, oh wow, legendary is still like an achievement. You know, it's like a big, big milestone. Yeah, so I would want to avoid that we're like jumping through the topics a little bit, and that everything gets addressed properly. Oh yeah, so you're taking upgrade path, yeah. So I would just do all the stuff to 17, and then just kind of see how much money you have left and how many backups you have. Most likely, the only thing you're gonna have really good backups for is mostly CRA. So like jumping CRA up to 18 and up to 19 is, depending on how much money you have, is probably gonna be pretty doable. Yeah, and from then you really want to do your own personal risk assessment. So I don't know if you have, do you have any experience with like the commands in my channel?
I look at your little spreadsheet with all your commands a lot of the time, so I'm familiar with like the calculators and the star forcing one and so on.
Exactly. So from there on, I would look at the star forcing calculator and just look at what's the average chance for booming, what's the average cost, median cost. So if you're doing just like singular items, I would look more like at the median. But if you're doing a bunch of items, I would look more like towards the average, right? Because you'll have more chance of outliers. And then really just make your own personal risk assessment, because I don't really want to tell people like you can't do this or you have to do that. I just want to say like make informed decisions. So just look at the numbers, look at how much you have, and then just make your own choices. And then if you make your own choices, you make your own bet and then you lie in it kind of approach. But I think 19 CRA and then everything else 17 will already give you like a huge damage bump. I'm not saying not invest in anything until then, but I would mostly work on the meso and the drop rate gear, and then probably try to get 2 lines of useful potential on your secondary.
Secondary, yeah.
Yeah, because right now that's sitting on a lot of potential. Yeah, I would never get something to legendary and then only get 1 line on it. Like otherwise, I would just keep it unique, basically.
That one actually skipped from epic to legendary and settled on that line.
Well,
that's what happened with that one.
I was gonna say there are exceptions, and then you put me right in my place. But yeah, so like if you get epic, I would always keep rolling until you have at least 6%. If you go unique, I would always get at least 9%, but probably aim for 12, especially if it's accessories. And if you're even thinking about going to legendary, you want to have the funds to get at least 2 like full useful lines on there. Otherwise, don't even tier it up. Just keep it on unique.
Yeah. Okay. 100%. Kind of how I feel about a lot of my unique potentials right now. I'm sitting on them because I'm like, I can upgrade them to 12% 12% stat or 13%, and it's kind of not worth it. They're already at like 15%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to look at what would be the minimum settle. Sometimes people like see 966 and they hate it. I'm like, why do you hate it? Like you basically hit legendary potential on unique. Like the game saved you like 600 mil tier up cost, right? Like, I see that as a huge win, because now you can spend that 600 mil on something else. And then sometimes people like re-roll over 21 to get it to legendary, and then settle on 21 again. It's like, what are you doing? You just wasted 600, 700, 800 mil. That money could have just gotten something else to legendary if you were lucky, or kept them epic if you're unlucky, of course. But maybe and that's why it's nice to have all these bossing mules, because you get so many cubes, and then you just have side characters and side characters and bossing mules that can just have everything roll up to 9% and up to 12%. And before you know it, they're also like 15, 20k, and they can start hammering Lotus and Damien.
Yep, what's been going on with the DA, just all the bossing cubes just been going on that character, and been turning out good.
Yeah, just all the little things just add up to a whole lot of HP, huh?
Yep.
Pen hit a 15, I see.
The Rune Force Shield definitely helps. Get very lucky on that, a normal Damien
run. Nice, on normal Damien run.
On a normal Damien run of all things, it's very unexpected.
Yep, as far as unique potentials go, that's pretty solid, because DA has like a negative crit rate, so...
My whole Legion board has to go to crit rate just to get it to 100%.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, I seen you rolled a very good Demon Avenger potential on the top here. That's gonna be your future for a long time if you play this character. These are the rolls that you're gonna end up with. Magnificent.
Yeah, that top's lucky.
What does the DA do? Does it do Lotus and Damien, or is that like the limit test on that one?
It does low main in about, I think, 10 minutes each. Maybe Lotus a little faster.
Okay.
It's about that speed. So it's really strong right now, actually. I'm actually very surprised with how strong it is.
Okay. Yeah, because DA,
nodes are very nice.
Yeah, they're very nice. Frenzy, constant damage of Frenzy, and like the better you get with the positioning. If you have a lot of more experience with the bosses, then a DA can commit a lot of damage, because you know the attack patterns, you know the positioning, you know where to move, and then the constant damage just flows in. Kind of like with the Buck as well, right? It's got the similar Lord of the Deep style damage, and just like kind of dashing around the boss and kind of outplaying it, teleporting behind him. I guess this is a really old character, though, because you got these totems, right?
Oh, it's from like 2018, 2019, when I used to make Blaster back then, actually.
That's why the Blaster is on the list, yeah. Because you've got the DA, the Arc, the Buck, and then the Blasters are kind of like, oh, that's a very different vibe all of a sudden.
I can do the Blaster combos, and I just didn't want to play that job anymore because it hurt my hands to farm on it specifically.
Yeah, everyone has their limits, you know. Guess you hit your limit on that one.
Yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah, so once you get to that point, you look at the calculators and you're like, maybe it's too risky now for the Arc to go beyond and go to 21.
Yeah.
So like general branch would be, all stuff 17, 19, CRA, and then you could go by backups. If you do have like a lot of Dominators, you have a lot of kind of treasurings, you could get those to 19. Usually then the next step is to get the CRA to 21. And then it's either those same things, those kind of treasure and those Dominators, probably Dominator less, probably kind of treasure ring more, also up to 21. And then it tends to be like fodder stuff, so all the 140 level stuff you saved up to transfer hammer into Superior and to try to get that. So 21 fodder to 20 star Superior. Unless you got very lucky on Superior backups, and you could try directly on Superior backups to try to get up to 19 and then maybe up to 21. Those are kind of like the steps, essentially.
Okay, yeah, makes sense, because
Abso stay 17, and then
yep. I agree there. It's just
into
it's a mess trying to get advice on star forcing from people, just because everyone has their own way of doing it. Some people just full send it and with 2 build 21 star random arcane boot, and
oh, you saw that?
Yeah, I did. Or I guess he was 5 bill or something. Some people.
Yeah, 5 bill. You 22'd it. Yeah, and then he got greedy after that.
Or some people just 1 star everything up, and just general consensus would be the better, honestly.
I would just say that as long as everyone star forces according to their risk aversion, then it's fine. As long as they have the numbers and they know roughly. Some people just kind of like tap it and they don't even want to know the numbers. If that works for you, that's cool. But I would say that's worse than tapping something while having the numbers and getting an unlucky outcome. I would say that's a better outcome and that's a better process than not wanting to know the numbers and just randomly tapping and getting a good outcome. I would say, yeah, that's, you're just literally just getting lucky there. It's not really reproducible either, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely look at those calculators then and see the numbers for like 19 stars on like the CRA and
Mm-hmm.
whatever I have backups for.
Yeah, you'll
So
probably
yeah.
find that like 19 and stuff like that is very, very affordable, even because we got upcoming 30% and 5, 10, 15 events also, right, in the coming batch.
Yeah.
So you might even already try to see if you can, well, you might already get some stuff to 17 on the DA and on the ARC, right?
Yeah, I think my arc, like yesterday, I upgraded it. I think almost everything except for the solid ring that I have for
Mm-hmm.
drop gear is 17 now. Even
Mm-hmm.
like the Sweetwater tattoo in my shoulder that were 15 are 17 now.
0 to 2. Okay. Yep. All right.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
because
So
I had
next
like
week we should get the
3 or
patch
4
notes
build.
on the upcoming month plus to see where ends in. Is it still doing a 3-minute ad rate? Are you fucking serious right now? Sorry, what is... No, it's in the right settings. Why is it saying that it's doing 3 minutes of ads? It shouldn't. Oh, and it's desynced everywhere. Okay, I don't know. Sorry. What were we talking about? Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
I just said that everything's pretty much 17 start already at this point.
Okay,
So.
yep. Good.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, and then so after that I would do, work a little bit on the pots.
Yeah, I feel like pots are probably the next thing after like a 30% or 5, 10, 15 to work on.
Yep. Well, I would say the so the drop in mezzo and the probably the secondary would
Yeah,
work on just like now, like before that even.
yeah, but
Yep.
yep.
To get that base income up, and then once the base income is up, then you have a more reliable outlook on how much you're making on a monthly basis. You don't want to get into a situation where you have all the backups and then no money to spend, because then you have like a mismatch again,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, you're right.
Next big step up, is that in terms of content or?
Yeah, because I feel like we're kind of breaking into the wall of like Blue Will, but I'm unfamiliar after like Blue Will. What is like the next gearing process after that? Because that's kind of where my knowledge on gear and stuff kind of stops. Like after Arcane, like what's next after that? You know?
Well, after Arcane is Eternal. It's basically like pitched waiting room and then Eternal gear grinding. I guess the broad steps are, so like you have, let's say you're like full 17, Abzo, 21 CRA, 20 star, superior stuff, some accessories 21, maybe 19 star Sweetwater stuff. That's kind of like your full set. Next thing would be to go into Arcane essentially, and just wait for backups and wait for big events, and then try to, if you can get enough superior backups, try to see if you can tap those to 21. Try to go into like the slime ring. So if you just get one, you can get it to 17. But if you get a slime ring late, 17 might not even be like really worth getting into. So it might be more of a case of seeing if you can buy a backup superior ring and do like another kind of treasure ring to 21 or Meister ring into superior. Try to tap the superior to 21. But like whatever you're transfer hammering, like don't like the first kind of treasure ring you get to 21, you want to wear as a 21 ring. You don't want to transfer hammer it down to 20 to a superior, because then you actually lose some of the gains you just made. So like the second 21 kana can go into a 20 superior, and then the first superior you get to 21, you wear as a 21 superior ring, and the second one you can make then goes into a slime ring, and then goes down to a 20. So you might end up in well, I guess I can show some characters and kind of like see what situations they're in, but you'll essentially then end up in like 17 arcanes, some 20, some 21 stuff, but mostly 20 and 21 stuff. And then some stuff might end up lagging behind a little bit, and that'll just depend on backup. So the slime ring is probably going to stay 20 for a while, unless you go into sea slime parties and get a lot of backups for that. Twilight Mark might be on 17 or on 19 for a bit if you just get unlucky with it, because that can go fast or it can go slow. You can ask Newbie, who had to blow up I think 9 Twilight Marks while safeguarding before he saw 18 for the first time. So that they just didn't want to go, but eventually it goes to 20, it goes to 21. But then you're basically just in there's like 2 big things there. There's like Oz rings, which with New Age will come from bosses, so that'll be more organic. If you're just doing your weekly bosses, you will see the ring boxes drop, and then hopefully get lucky on that. And the other thing will just be pitched waiting room and looking for pitch drops. Then some you can move in immediately, so you can try to tap into, or just equip. So that's like the emblem, the book, the eye in the face, because those will not disrupt your sets too much. The face might disrupt the set, right, with the Twilight Mark, with the ring combo. And when that does, hopefully you have some pendants from Fihila or from Seren that can take up the second pendant slot, the Daybreak pendant, and then that can take over the set bonus. But other than that, the other pieces you basically just keep until there's a really good star forcing event, or if you just feel like tapping. But the other pieces, like the belt, the ring, you could tap and like switch into it, right? Because some of the set bonuses are not going to be good. Like your 4th ring is going to either be like a reinforced or a Meister, and the ring is level 200, so the ring should be added to that first group that I mentioned. So the eye phase, book pendant ring, and then but basically the pendant could, but again then could double break the set. But like source is for me elusive. For other people it exists, for me not so much. But it's mainly like the pendant, the belt and the earring. If you get them, you could just hold on to those for a while, because even if they do go to 22, then you don't switch into them because it breaks your superior set, which is most likely at that point at least all 21, but some pieces are already going to be 22. Most likely the belt and the earring, because that's where you get backups for. So those are also going to be the last ones you want to switch out. So that kind of like clashes with those pieces being quote-unquote upgrades.
Yeah, that makes sense, because just hearing again people just talk about like pitch upgrades and stuff, they always really confuse me, being like, oh, this and this, but kind of seeing like a very general, like rough idea of kind of like what you kind of want to work towards actually helps me a ton, kind of, because I've heard people argue like, don't switch to pitch until you're full set 9, like you have everything, or switch to pitch on these specific things and so on. It's just people just arguing on like random Discord servers.
Yeah, if you want to so if you're talking about like switching out of superior, you want to end up, I think, at least with a 7 set, but probably 8 or 9. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But because it's mostly about the earring and the belt switch, because then the 30 ID and 30 boss goes, and that's also when you see people suddenly getting like 68k stat or something, which seems like impossible. But that's mostly just because those pieces have just so much more stat on it, and Crazy Flames and 22 star, but they need that stat to overcome the loss in set bonus, because you get some crit damage and all, and that's cool, but that doesn't that crit damage doesn't account for 30 boss and 30 IED being lost. So you need all that extra stat to counteract that.
Yeah, okay.
Past that, you're just looking for like arcane backups, and slowly trying to get the arcanes to 19. Then you're basically trying to finish everything else off to 22, and then you're trying to tap the arcanes to 21, and then eventually to 22. Weapon typically stays at 17 or 19. You can tap it up to 19 if you have a backup, or if you have multiple backups. I ended up going for 21 on both of my weapons because I had like 7 backups, and Liberation was still far away. But typically 17 or 19 weapon is good enough to liberate, and then you end up with a 22 Genesis weapon that completely blows your arcane out of the water, which you never thought was possible with how much better an arcane is than an Abzo, but it's still that much better of an upgrade. And then you keep that for ever, so I don't know if I'm missing. Oz is just going to be, now it's the thing that you can still grind for, but then in the end it's just going to be like bossing, and that's going to be your limited access to them. Yeah,
okay. That helps a lot, since everyone, because everyone's gear is always so different, so it's always hard just to. I like having like a rough like kind of game plan on what to keep doing next. So you kind of describing a rough game plan is really helpful for me, since
that's why I made the
case,
true. Well, that's also why I made the progression grid, because it's like a lot of people ask for like equip progression stuff, and I just don't really want to do that, because I don't want anyone to feel like what they have now is bad, or there's
Yeah.
a lot of ways lead to Rome, right? Like you can
Yeah.
have one shitty piece or one amazing piece and then build your whole set around there, and whatever is like. That's why I don't like the whole term like best in slot and everything, because what does best in slot mean? It means that no other piece in that slot can be stronger than that piece. But then you just import synergy and suddenly, well, yeah, okay, now all of it is already contextual, right? And now you import like how much time someone has to play, and now it gets additional context. Now you add the factor of luck, and now there's additional context. And now the best in slot you're looking at now is already vastly different. And now what is second best in slot could be completely different from the first one. I don't want people to feel like, okay, if I have this one piece, check, I'm done, move on to the next thing. Because what happened way back in the past is people would get like Sweetwater Tattoo and Monocle super fast because those were best in slot, quote unquote. And then they would move on. But then they would get like at level 165 or something, they would be like running around with those accessories and spending all their money trying to get those to unique, when if you just used Zakum accessories, you'd have set bonus, you'd have flame advantage, and you'd just be stronger, it'd be easier to get, and it'd be cheaper, and you're just wasting your time and your money going for those accessories too early just because they had that label best in slot, right? Just because that that evokes such high priority status, which I don't think it deserved at that point. So try to give more like, these are like the stats you're roughly looking for. This is how much total star force you want, right? This is how much total stat you're looking for, total weapon attack you're looking for, kind of quality of the flames you're looking for, level of your nodes you're looking for. And if you're in that ballpark with all of those things, then you're on the right track. If you're way off on something and you hate it, then try to compensate it with other things. But try to still do as much of it as possible, And if you don't hate it, then put some more time towards that relatively, and it'll help you just restore the balance in your account in terms of where you spend your time and your meso, essentially.
Okay, that's all very helpful. I keep forgetting the progression thing, because I would look at it a lot back like maybe 2 months ago, but I've stopped recently. But I should definitely look at it again, because my stage in the game has definitely changed.
Yeah, it fluctuates. And yeah, with New Age, with New Age, I'm making a new one that is a little bit different on the level on the level ranges. So all of the numbers, move as well. So this is probably going to need like a little bit of an in-depth early one. I just didn't want to make like 7 stages, because then it's just that's a little rough. But what is considered a level 260 when New Age has been like out for a month is going to be very different from what is a 260 now, right? Just now you can have characters like my marksman or my hero that are like 7 years old and they're still 250 but are like out damaging at 275. But that's not going to be if characters start around the same point, it's I want that level to be the predictor, and it's really hard to do at this point because there's people who've been playing vastly different amount of time. Well, so you also asked something about multi-maining, right? Like really having 2 big characters.
Because it's more of a recent thing for me. So it's like I don't really know like how do you spread your wealth essentially to multiple characters. Because I have no experience in that. So, and I've seen you kind of do it. So it's kind of like a little advice that you could probably share with me.
Yeah, I always look. So I'm also kind of keeping an eye on like content creation and that kind of stuff, so you won't have to worry about that as much. But I want to look at, I want to be able to make content in different stages and have characters that are capable of doing content where they are not both not carrying and not getting carried. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I try to strike that balance where I don't overfund them just because I can. And I also don't try to artificially underfund them because I know I'm going to get the gains anyway because I can have hookups or something. So I try to not treat them like a spoiled rich kid, but also not like someone who has to like work way beyond their means to achieve something. So that basically comes down to just doing the runs on a character the first time and just seeing how long it takes, and then using that as an assessment to be like, okay, this character just needs a little bit more because I like it somewhat of a challenge, but I don't want to be here for like 3 hours, And if something is like pretty easy and I can do it, and I know I'm going to get even better at it by getting better at the boss, getting better at the character and stuff like that, then I'm like, I'm good, So it's keeping in the back of your head kind of the calculations you did last time during an event and being like, okay, this update was too risky now. And then like another month or two later, you look at it, the character again, and you're like, I have more money now, and I have more backups on this character now, and kind of keeping track of like where does the money go between all the other characters. So let's say your main is in that situation, right, where you just move into the arcanes, and the next step is basically like tapping arcanes up to 19. You don't really have the backups. You're not sure about paying 5.5 bill per backup even during an event. You're looking at the Starforce cost, and you're like, what access would this give me? This would maybe speed up my hard Fihela runs, maybe bring me into solo Chaos Tenebris. If it's the jump from like party to solo Chaos Tenebris and like tripling, quadrupling your chance on pitched, and that's really what you want to do with your character, then that might be worth jumping into. But it's like you're still going to be doing, it just slightly speeds it up, but that same money in your second character might make the jump from 17-star superior to 20 or to 21-star superior, because you've been holding off on those backups, you've been holding up on those upgrades, and you can actually make a big jump there. Because that's going to be the next thing. Like your first character, you're really going to have to make all those intermediary steps, because you cannot really skip steps, right? Unless you get really lucky and you get like a berserk drop before your Twilight mark goes past 17, then you can kind of make skips there. But your secondary and tertiary and all those characters are going to be able to make certain jumps, because you know what it took for that first character, and you know where those bottlenecks kind of are. So you know where you really want to take those chances and where you don't, based on your own experiences already and based on your calculations. So your first character might have to push certain things a little bit further, because maybe your Legion isn't 9k yet, and because you haven't gotten super lucky on something. But let's say that you just roll on your secondary on your DA and it rolls like 30% attack. Now immediately like, okay, this is like a 40 bill potential. So there's like a lot of other stuff that I don't have to push quite as far, and I can hold back on that a little bit, just undercut a little bit, like gimp yourself basically just a bit, and then wait for some drops and wait for an event and then make a big jump, because you don't need to spend that early, and by waiting you can get, and this is like kind of like a rich getting richer kind of vibe, because you just kind of like know the tricks and you know where the opportunities lie. So that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm looking at like which character do I want to push further. And what I find right now, for me the main limiter is I don't really like training. So for me the main limiter is the levels. Like I could, I've already funded my my hero and my marksman way further than a 250 has any business being. I could do it way further, because I'm sitting on like 200 bill. I have my marksman. Right now I'm kind of in a dumb situation, because I'm like upgrading because my inventory is full and I want to make space. That's basically what I'm doing now, which is not like the best idea. But if you have full 22 on your two main characters and you're not getting pitch drops, I don't really like the idea of like going double prime on accessories and stuff, especially not if you have to go into pitched after that, because that's most of the accessories switched. So maybe I'll do a few of them, but double priming WSE, like my secondary already are. There's some projects there you can do, and then you just look at the calculator. But gaining 5% final damage on my main for 200 bill versus, gaining 20% final damage for the same money on like my fourth character, to me, I prefer playing more characters more than having my main character just be a little bit stronger. I'm okay not being in Kalos runs and barely clearing Saren and not even thinking about Kaling yet, even though I have the sacred power for it. I'm okay doing that in 6 months or in a year. Like I'm in no rush,
Yeah.
But some people are, so they want to squeeze out the min max, and then it's just about looking at the calculators and looking at the risk again.
Yeah.
So play the characters, see what they can do, and decide if you want to make a next jump with them. Determine what's the difference between being able to make an upgrade and really wanting to, and needing an upgrade, right? Because if because you can is never the reason, because then you're just always swiping and always spending. So where can the money really work? It's still a little bit abstract probably, but as you go through that process with your first character more, a lot of it will become more obvious and more apparent, and the practice that you learn from that will guide you through that more.
Yeah, it definitely felt like I experienced that recently with like Lotus and Damien, like being able to do a 28-minute fight on Lotus with one life left for phase 2 and 3 was kind of like told me like, oh, I know how to do this fight. now better now than I used to know how, because I would die out in phase 1 when I first tried it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No
And
one
many
used to
characters
laser
have like
stuff.
one little trick, like one little thing you can do in
Yeah.
phase 1 just to make that easier. And once you learn that
Mhm.
one, it's like, oh, suddenly you just breeze through it. Or in the
Yeah.
beginning, you have to just dump a full burst rotation in P1 just to get out. And as you get stronger,
Yeah.
you tap like 2 skills and you just nuke it. And you're like, oh, and now I could just burst P2, and then you start realizing, oh, actually P2 is kind of weak too. I could just save all my bursts for P3 and actually just kill P3 in 2 bursts.
Yep.
And that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when you feel that progress of your character getting a lot stronger.
Yeah, definitely.
The arc can just like dash through all the
Definitely enjoy
lasers, right? Or teleport, air teleport. So it just you can
Mhm,
jump
yeah.
back and forth, and then like iframe through it, and you just play around with it. And
Yeah,
the DA, yeah, you
like-
just sit in frenzy and revenant if you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, because when I did on Arc, I didn't know you had to jump to dash and dash to
Oh
teleport.
yeah,
so
yeah, you always die a
dash
few
in the ground
times.
and die.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh. And then I don't know who I saw. Someone was like, yeah, you have to jump for it to teleport. And I think it was like the Arc Discord. And I was like, oh, that
Yep.
makes a lot of sense. Why it would
Yeah, those
work
little
sometimes
tips
and not work
from
other
class
times.
discords can be very useful. But yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I never ever just rushed through the laser and insta died. I never did that. I always, truthfully, I never like lagged on the jump and then just dashed and be like, okay. That's never happened. Yeah. Or let go of your iframe a little bit too early and then just still be in the laser. Or the laser just kind of like snaps back into your position when you jump and be like, okay, just shaved off the top of your head,
Yeah, I've had that happen. Just a little lag spike or something just touches you ever so slightly. And you
It's
just die.
right after the spawn. There's always like one snap first. I always wait for that first snap, and then
Yeah.
then the tempo is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that it does lag right at the entrance. Same thing with Golux. Sometimes I'll just spawn in and I'm already dead, and that just happens.
Oh, and
Just
lose
like,
it.
okay.
Yeah, I like to be right in the middle. I like to get to the middle as fast as possible and stay like right in her, right on top of the middle of her. I feel like that hits the fewest golems.
Yeah,
It's like this. Yeah, as weird as it is, that's like the safest spot. But yeah, then the sickles can get you. So nowhere is really safe
Yeah.
over there.
well, at least Arc can teleport through sickles if you're.
Yeah,
You have the
exactly.
hands.
Exactly. Yeah, we have that. We have that going for us. Yeah, we have a lot of utility.
Yeah.
That's like the upside and the downside, or like the big differences I notice with the DA is that when it comes to really surviving and the dashing up and then blinking very high up in the air, Arc definitely has a lot more in terms of vertical mobility, and horizontal mobility. But then the DA just has the thing where it doesn't really need to move most of the time. You can just power through stuff. But a lot of it comes from experience and. Yeah.
DA was a big struggle for me to learn when I first started doing CRA on it. I remember the queen when she would swipe, that would one-shot me when I was in frenzy. Just that one little swipe, and I was like, oh.
Yeah,
this
you got to
is different.
blast before everyone, right?
Yep.
That's what you learn more is like trigger finger control, that you don't really use your blast for damage, but you use it to survive attacks because it heals and reduces incoming damage. So it's like a double block basically.
Yeah. It was just it's fun though. I like the DA.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very different.
It's
I
like high
really
risk, high
enjoy it.
reward. I feel
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Arc is like way lower risk, but the it's still good reward, but it doesn't feel as satisfying. It's something about
like
the
that.
DA and just being so close proximity to danger and being able to die every attack. It feels a bit.
I agree with that. Yeah, the Arc took me pretty much having almost all my nodes maxed out for it to feel like I was actually hitting hard.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while for it to actually feel more satisfying. I felt very underpowered for a good bit early on.
It's just so burst centric that you just do one big nuke and then the off burst is a little oof. But then DA, the burst is not that crazy, but you do a lot more damage off burst, more DPM. That's just a very different profile for classes. They're almost like opposites in that.
Yeah.
So they complement each other, we say.
Yeah, they give you everything in the game that you can offer. There's some DPM and some bursts.
Exactly. So you got here leveling or FAMs before New Age. I would definitely, with the upcoming event, I would definitely go for leveling as much as possible.
Level, yeah.
And you're in an area now where you can level and FAMs, right? So right now it's not really
exactly
the option yet. So it's really once you get the Cernium. There is a possibility because arc and you're looking at like the impending deaths and the spell bullets and everything that right at 260 you probably don't have the damage yet for those to really be killing yet.
Yeah.
So you probably like even until like 262, 263 or something might still be in the lower level areas. And then I would take it like kind of as like case by case. The thing is just so there's multiple theories, but I think the theory that prevails most is just to go for FAMs most now. Because with the EXP curve changes and everything, yeah, past 260 it'll be slower, but not crazy amount. And you're going to be grinding in Grandis to build up your 6 job, and then no FAMs are going to drop there. So you want to have at least a drop rate FAM so that you can grind out the 6 job items better after the New Age update. So you want to have at least like, or well, yeah, no, it's not like you can control it, but you want to at least have as a goal to get that large item drop rate, and then hopefully 1 or 2 boss by that time. Because you're going to be full on in Grandis with as much drop rate as you can to try to level out those 6 job skills.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That was definitely written before Nitrope was announced, so I definitely will try to push levels now more aggressively now that event's been announced. So
yeah, I saw those individual buffs, right? Like all of that stuff stacking together is, yeah, it's crazy
it's
EXP.
It's insane.
This is like a nerf of a nerf of a nerf of the original event, but like the original one was just crazy. It was like 4 hours of, like the last 2 weeks, it was like 4 hours of plus 250% EXP per day. And it was like, and then every activation was also like a full map clear with like a bonus EXP on it. Yeah, it was just fucking nuts. Yeah. And then on top of that, like the buffs with the Evan rune, it's like haste. It's like a double haste event basically. Yeah, it's nuts. How to upgrade off event for dopamine. So what I look at as a thing, I kind of look at upgrade possibilities as, you know, I kind of fall into the trap there as like a percentage of what the efficiency could be. So I do come to rely on star forcing costs just only on event ones. So I usually don't star force off event unless right now, like if I get it pitched, I'll just tap it off event because, you know, for me it's content and because I want to know if I actually have an item in hand or just a trace that's going to cost me 15 bill. I want to know which one of the two it is. Flaming is something that I might get into, but I feel like flaming as like a trying to upgrade your stuff thing is more of a, you know, black flames in an event shop, or if everything is already 21 and 22 and you're just waiting for an event kind of thing. But flaming is mostly something where I think most people just sit on adequate flames and that's totally fine. So for me, it's mostly just cubing on like a side character or on a project and be like, okay, I'm just gonna, and then I say to my chat, like, I'm just gonna buy a few cubes, you know, and then I just buy like 2, 3, 4, 5 building cubes, and then, you know, you get nothing, and it's like, okay, just a few more, you know, and then I just, before I know it, I spent like 20 bill. But for me, 20 bill, that's like 1 week worth of income, and then that's cool, and then I do that once, you know, I do that like 2 or 3 times a year, you know, like it's not really a common thing. But there's a few things you can do on that level. Another one would be like to see, I wouldn't do it like off event as much, but you could also do like, I'm going to do a bill or 2 in like circulators on a character that you want to play that really needs a good interability.
Yeah.
That might be something if it's like a character that's relying on buff duration on the second line or something like that, you know, or crit rate, then to make it work. Like the DA maybe.
The DA.
Yeah.
I did that on the DA recently for attack speed. I really wanted it.
Yeah, but you want to be careful when you're going for like just the top line. The efficiency on having to like lock the top line and then getting the other ones is really low. New Age also has more. So definitely most stuff interability. I would say to you and to everyone, don't spend too much because you're gonna get. New Age is gonna have more updates on interability. So like no rare anymore and higher chance of unique when you're in legendary tier. Like 50% higher than now. So more value from your circulators and better chance at getting like legendary double unique interabilities by quite a good margin. But yeah, general, if you have a unique line that you're very reliant on, you want to roll that with circulators first and then lock that and then roll your legendary afterwards. And if you spend too much of your honor to just get the legendary, and I get it, you know, characters that need the legendary line, so either attack speed, or what's the other one people need? There's one more. But there's definitely a few, like, you know, like a marksman and a cannoneer. Also, without the attack speed +1, you're just so slow. What's another super reliant? Oh, or like maybe like 20% cooldown skip for some characters, right? Is like very, very useful, like for a cadena and stuff like that. It's difficult to build your inner ability properly if you really rely on those heavily. So I empathize with the with the plight for sure. We got the tech speed now, so now you just, hold and save and save and save. Yeah.
Yep. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna save until I'm probably gonna try to get a crit rate line on it, just because it really needs it.
Mm-hmm.
It suffers on crit rate so much.
Yeah, but so there's like two situations. Like you could lock the attack speed and try to endlessly try to go for a crit rate and then never get it, or you can throw circulators at it, get the until you get the crit rate, and then lock that and get the attack speed back. Like the second one is just overall more efficient. It seems worse because you're like rolling away from what you already have, but it'll be cheaper and it'll be faster to do it that way.
Yeah, that is the way that I never thought of doing it like that. So.
And that you probably want to wait until you have like at least, I would say, like past New Age, and wait until you have at least like 1 million honor, I would say.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till I had like 1 million, and if there was like a Sunny Sunday being announced for like half off or something, like for each roll, I was probably gonna wait till something like that to try to get the crit rate. But
yeah, so what I do is like, if there's an event, I would just wait until you have 1 million, and then look for an event, and then set a budget for circulators, like set like 2, 3, 4, 5 bill, whatever. And if you don't get it into circulators, then just either move on or look at your total income. But don't like zero out on circulators or something and then not get it. Like I would set a budget there. And then if you do get it, then you get that, lock in, and try to get your attack speed back, essentially.
Yeah, I think it was only like 1 bill went into the DA, and I got it, and I have like 2 circulators left. So I got. I feel like I got really lucky.
I rolled it on circulators. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled on circulat's. So I feel like I got really lucky with the roll with 1 bill. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good stuff. Let's see, what was the other questions? What to burn next? Corsair Blaster. Wait, Blaster? Yeah. Wasn't that your main?
My Blaster's like 218, so I was just I like wanted to.
Talking about hyper burn on New Age.
Yeah, New Age. Yeah. So it's like I just don't know what to burn. I've been very indecisive for a long time with jobs. So it's just kind of like, I guess your opinion on kind of these characters and kind of where they are right now, kind of what I'm mostly looking for.
Corsair Blaster. So the other ones are just around 200, or?
I think Corsair and is like 180, and the Fire Poison is like 140 something. The Battle Mage is 200 exact, and the Blaster's 218.
So for the Fire Poison, you just start a new character, basically, right?
Yeah, I would start a new character for the Fire Poison, yeah.
Yeah, and the other ones start at 200, So would this be for potentially, like, a third character in the rotation, or taking up the spot of the DA, or would it just be for a boss mule?
Probably a third character, like, in the rotation. I don't want to call it, like, a main, but I definitely don't want to just call it, like, a mule, kind of, like, in between that.
Yeah, it'll be like a higher level or at the same level as your main, so it'll feel weird. Yeah, like I have level 250s that are, like a hero 250 versus my like my Mihal 250. Like one is literally double the stat of the other one. Like they're both the same level, but these two are not the same. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So these are all classes whose playstyle you like. You said plus 10 other jobs in the sense like
that's you're just not being indecisive.
Yeah, being indecisive. Yeah. Well, there would definitely be some information still coming out on like the 6th job and when it's going to be exactly. The thing is just I don't think there's really any amazing choices or any wrong choices here, because I agree, even if the 6th job is not exactly the best, in 6 months, they could just add more mastery cores and enhancement cores, and then suddenly the classes balance can tilt again. So it's gonna, just like with fifth job, it took like 3.5 to 4 years before they really established fifth job, and even then there were class changes and stuff like that. I think the same thing will happen, or I'm pretty sure like the same thing will happen for sixth job. So it's never really going to be done. So I would look at their current play style, see if you enjoy it, and kind of look at the sixth job like videos and see if there's anything there that tickles your fancy. I guess the blaster is something that you've always kind of liked in the past. So do you feel obligated to the blaster to consider it?
A part of me does feel a little obligated because one, I can do like the bossing combos and stuff like that. So I already have I already entered the floor essentially, like, so it's like I can play it. But a big part that's like hesitant with the blaster, like it's 218. Like I feel like, am I missing out on too much, or is it good, or is it too late to start that burn? It's kind of where I'm hesitant on it with that.
Yeah, well, the further you get into the game when it comes to Legion and stuff, the more, like, if I'm at my position, I will say 218 is kind of like, is almost, in terms of level, in terms of the time spent on it, in terms of hours training, is almost like a new character.
Yeah.
If you're comparing that to like getting to 260 to 270 to 280, right? Like if you look at the EXP curve, like those points of EXP are so close together that you can even distinguish that there's a difference until you get like past level 275 almost.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at, does something have legacy gear on it, or, then there's that extra value where now it's worth like pushing it forward as a character almost regardless of where it is, because then you can take that benefit that you have and basically update it into current year. So I don't know if the blaster has like totems and potential badge, maybe stuff like that.
It has, I think, the totems. I think it has like 2 dark totems and like 1 gold or something like that.
That's pretty nice.
I think it has a potential badge that's sitting in its inventory.
Okay.
I haven't touched it. And
that's Legion raid power, dude.
Yeah, I haven't touched it that much. I haven't looked at it because I don't know. I just haven't looked at it that much.
But do you feel like you don't really want to invest in a character now, but you might want to if it has those levels and has a little bit of a fire under its ass to perform, basically?
Yeah, it's kind of like, because the big part with Blaster is like the grinding on it is pretty difficult for me because there's like new techniques that have come out for it for making the grinding more comfortable, but I can't do them. So it's like I can just rush that grinding with a hyper burn, and that's kind of what's like incentivizing me.
Right. And you can get to the fun part, which is more the bossing and.
Yeah, exactly. Like where Blaster kind of is fun to play for me is the bossing part where you kind of ignore shit with your.
Have you ever played it on a controller?
No, I haven't. Maybe
I heard from,
would be comfortable.
Yeah, I heard from people like that they love playing the class on a controller just because it takes all the stress off your wrists and everything. And for the longer training sessions and stuff like that, it's actually way more enjoyable to play it that way.
Yeah, I should look into that then. Yeah,
I'm sure the Blaster Discord might have some information on that because they're always they're always recruiting. I'm guessing.
There's like a 10-page document that they have about like keyboard input on like for a technique called skating. So they must have something.
Yeah. It seems like they must have something on that then. Yeah,
they must have something on it. They really love the job. That's for sure.
And they know it's not like the easiest thing in the world, but that's almost like the fun part of it is that it isn't that easy to figure out. I just watched like a 2-hour documentary yesterday on. Wow, I was clearly paying attention because now I can't think of the Super Smash Bros. Melee, right? Like the whole.
Yeah.
It's like such an old quote unquote simple game, and how it just has these weird things where like, if you do rock paper scissors in the beginnings on which port you get to plug your controller into, because if you're like a higher port, then you have grab and ledge priority. If you do it at exactly the same time, but if you have a lower port, then you get an extra frame of comboing on throws or something. It's like because it's like port priority determines. Yeah, it's like it's like little stuff like that. But that's like really fun to some people. And judging by all your spreadsheets and stuff, like you're probably into similar stuff like that. I'm guessing, where it's not something that like ticks you off, but it's more like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool to learn about.
Yeah. I enjoy like more difficult things. Like I
Hmm.
played Dawn Warrior for a bit, and I like honestly fell asleep one time
Yeah, I was gonna
leveling it
say
up.
you probably just passed out.
It's why it's 210. I haven't
Yeah.
pushed it past that.
I mean, it's
Like
really good. I had
genuinely
to kind of
good.
the same thing with Adele when it came out, where people were like, "Oh, do you like Adele?" I was like, "Well, you can't really dislike it because it's just so strong, but also it's just
Yeah.
boring how strong it is. Like, there's no challenge there."
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree.
it kind of speaks to the thing that you were talking about with the blaster. You do get to blow through like the endless monotonous grinding part, and then you can get to the more exciting higher level bosses part where you do need the levels for to be able to get there. So
Yeah.
that does kind of speak to its power as well, that it allows you to get to the fun part faster, and then you kind of start feeling bad for the people who are just trying to get carried because they want to do the high level boss fights, and it's like, I kind of get it,
Hmm.
like you don't want to
Yeah.
endlessly be doing CRA like until the day you die, because it kind of gets old.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah, I
I
mean, I would give the
agree.
blaster a try if you're in it before. Definitely look into a controller because I heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely should.
I guess they're all
I
kind of in the
guess
same vibe on like of how like hierarchy input, all of them, right?
yeah, they're
Corsair's like a lot
definitely
of
more
maintenance.
DPM and input. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, Fire Poison's like DPM
very
king.
DPM. Yeah,
Almost no burst. Like there's that one summon every 30 seconds, and then that's kind of it.
yeah, I think that's it. Honestly.
And that you're just spamming skills for days.
Hmm. I
Um,
guess it's kind of more of a question: how are like DPM jobs kind of right now? Because
yeah,
you
so
always
there,
hear bad
yeah,
things about them. You know.
yeah, it's still going to be kind of up in the air. We'll have to see how much. I always very careful with saying like, well, KMS did this, therefore this, because we just
Yeah.
kind of play a different
Hmm.
version of the game. But they did
Yeah,
add that continuous damage ring. I don't know if you saw that one.
they did. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And but then at the same time, they made every single class more bursty with six jobs, so it's like
Mhm.
it's almost
Yeah.
like counter synergy. So we'll have to, everyone's probably gonna have to just do calculations and be like, this is either a
Hmm.
good idea and a great idea, or this is a horrible idea, and we're just gonna have to kind of, based on people's BAs, kind of like decide like, okay, if you're past this point, this is better. If you're past this point, this is better. But I'm expecting just ring swapping, honestly, for
Hmm.
the burst classes to just still be very much a thing. But if you're DPMing, there's that cooldown on that ring before it starts applying. So ring swapping, they kind of counter that. So there's very
Yeah.
short boss fights. You probably still want to get a roar or something, and then just tap your six job and
Hmm.
just kind of like nuke it. But the longer boss fights, you probably want to get the continuous rings, and
Yeah.
because it's just so much extra damage. Um, and keep that on, and then you don't have to worry as much about ring swapping. I'm always looking at like, if the ring swapping is pretty close to not doing it, then I was like, fuck it, on my ping and like the min maxing, and I'm already at
Hmm.
risk for dying out enough without it as it is. So for me, that's
Hmm.
like a good excuse to just not do it. But if you want to min max, it's kind of inevitable, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I did forget about that new ring. That probably throws everything up in the air now at this point. Just
Yeah, I
who
did
knows
shift
what's
the
strong
balances
now?
quite a bit. Yeah. And we have extra attack speed, and then since it is
Yeah.
boss damage, we do get into the old reboot passive thing again a little bit, where if you have big bossing fams, then you just get a little bit more diminishing returns on the boss damage
Hmm.
addition, right? But we're in reboot, so we tend to have a little bit less percentage boss and IED still in the WSE from the olden days compared, because we had the old passive, but then yeah. So it'll, once you go to the top end, it's all just throw everything into a calculator and just kind of like look what number it shits out, or just do the BAs yourself, in the fog forest, and then do a few of them and then
Hmm.
see if there's a significant difference. And if there isn't, then fuck it. And if there is a significant difference, then decide how much you want to deal with that.
Yeah. Okay. That all makes sense.
Uh, your last one is like how get hands. For me, what helps is like long training sessions, and they used to
Yeah.
be pretty impossible because no practice modes, and
Yeah.
um, or like black mage practice was like, oh, literally like one run a day, and you need to consume a key every time, and it's like
Yeah.
not a good time. So Yeah, I would. That's what works for me, but different things work for different people. But I will just sometimes just do practice mode and just go in and keep going in, keep going in, and just yell at the computer and
Yeah.
complain. But with every run, you do learn more, and you do feel getting like you're getting a bit better. Like I just did. We did like some pretty disastrous Saren runs with the party, and then afterwards I just went into practice mode 3 times. And of course, I die out 3 times, but starting to get the hang a little bit of like which things do I need to find a solution for, like which situations do I create that are dangerous that I definitely don't want to create, and how do I deal with those dangerous situations if they happen. What a lot of this game comes down to, when do I need to use my escape buttons, right? Like when do I need to Revenant, when do I need to Abyssal Recall, when do I need to iframe. And the more you learn the boss fight and see where the 40% and less dangerous situations are and how you can get out of them, the more you can hold your iframes for like the 60% and up dangerous situations where there's just way more chance of you actually dying there, and then you can hold your iframes for those situations and you can feel more in control of the boss fight, be less blindsided.
Yeah.
But I don't see any way that can happen other than by just experience and just I think I miss. Sometimes I miscall it like hyperbolic time chamber, but it's kind of like just going in there and then just you're not allowed to leave until you've gained a certain amount of exp in the boss fight. And you learn from every run. Even if you die out in 3 seconds, then you learn what not to do. Then at least there's some things that you can exclude for next time. And it's all just, you're almost like an iterative process AI that's just trying to get a little bit closer to where you need to go with every single horrible failure that you do. Just learn from abject failure. That's what I would do. Just try and learn from it. The only run you waste is one that you don't, is if you don't learn from it, or one that you don't take. So that's generally my advice. But I don't know in the past how you've gotten better. Maybe watching videos, seeing other people of the same class do it, maybe with like key input or something. Maybe that helps you.
Honestly, it's just, for me, it's really just going into a fight and just testing my limits when it comes to like just fighting something. Like I wouldn't, like when I couldn't do the dash through on lasers for Lotus, I just went in a practice run and just kept testing it. Just did like 10 runs in a row where I just kept testing it until I was very consistent at it. So it's just very hard grinding on one specific problem I had.
Yeah, and then when you cross that one, you can move on to the next one. But that's a good thing about doing all the bosses and not like getting carried through everything, is that a lot of bosses have similar things that previous bosses do. And if you've learned to get through those, you can immediately cross those off the list, and they're just not a danger to you anymore. And you can focus on the few things that are, and you can learn the boss fight so much faster. Like a lot of the bosses have like fight me in the middle of the map and just dance around me. Like Helix has that. The fucking, well, to an extent, Magnus has that, and then like Damien has that, and Lotus has that, and fucking Will has that, and and then Saren has that, and like that's a pattern that most of the bosses have. But if you just kind of like sit in the corner and wait for the boss to die, then every next boss that you're finally, whatever is the first boss you're actually going to fight, there's so many more things being thrown at you at the first time. You just don't know how to prioritize that. It's so difficult.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, where things are starting to build on top of each other, like projectiles falling from the ceiling.
Yep.
Like,
which boss doesn't have that? Yeah, exactly.
And like that you get used to Lotus, and then in the future you see Gloom has the same, then Darknell has like the same going on.
Saren,
all of them just have things falling from the ceiling. So it's like, they're kind of building you up to more and more difficult mechanics. I'm starting to see that now, which is pretty cool, honestly.
Different. I think actually the first one that has it is Vonbon, right? Like in the last phase, if you do like a long boss fight, like they have different sizes, different falling speeds, different amounts of damage. So you learn like, okay, if you have two things falling at the same time, you're gonna die. That now you can have the fast enough response to just jump into the thing that does the least damage, because now you can survive. One thing I still need to learn is when two things fall at the same time, just choose one and jump into that rather than trying to dodge both, because you're just going to hit both if you do that. You just always hit both, and then you're probably dead. Just choose one and just face tank that one, and that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
If I could impart any kind of wisdom on all of my failures, choose which thing to hit your head into and just do that with style, and then and then live. Was there any specific boss? Because I mean, we talked about will a little bit in the beginning. That's probably what it was also connected to, right?
Yeah, most of my questions were for Will. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one question that I feel very hard to answer is, what's a good way to justify like I should be testing out this next boss? Like, what's a good metric? Like, I beat this boss.
Mm-hmm.
I should start testing this next boss. Like, what's a good measurement? Is it like a BA? Is it your stats? Is it your gear? Like, that's kind of like
Yeah. So I use
very abstract, I feel.
Yeah. It's still pretty. It could be pretty far. So that's why I made the progression grid, not just to kind of like see how strong you want to be around the levels. The point of the progression grid is actually as a foundation for something I made before, which was the dailies grid. And the dailies grid basically had all the content by level in terms of when do I think it's worth and worth your time to go into the next piece of content.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, but the level, what does the level mean, right? So then I made the progression as the foundation for that. I'm like, this is what the level means. This is what the game wants you to roughly be as strong as. So this is connected with like how much arcane power do you need, how much IED do you need, how much PDR does the boss have. That's all kind of like where it's connected. So past normal Lucid and normal Will, it kind of starts implying parties. But as the power creep happens, I'm probably going to have to redo this, similarly as the progression grid as well, because 6-job coming in will give people like a huge power spike around 260, and it might allow people to solo way more reliably for longer duration. But of course, for a longer time. But of course, there is, the further you go, class difference starts making a huge splash in there as well, right? Like a PT soloing something versus, a Shadower soloing something is going to be vastly different.
Yeah.
But this is like around the level where I'm like, you could definitely start considering this, and then based on how the run goes, you draw your conclusion. Like, okay, I'm too laggy. Well, you probably need a party to like cover your ass, right? Like if it's like hardware, like nothing you can do there. If it's like if you don't have nearly enough damage, you're just getting you're able to survive, but you just can't put a dent in it. You go back to the progression grid and like see if your stats are all good, because you might be messing up on something there, or your mechanics aren't good, and then you need to look at the class Discord, see if you can get some tips or something, or get a party. If you're just dying out to like everything, you just need to practice more, maybe check some videos, check some guides, hyperbolic time chamber it, just like jump in there and just run your face into the wall a few dozen times until you can just start being like, oh, this is why I die. This is what I need to dodge. This is what I need to prioritize, right? And then based on that, again, iterative process, see if you can get closer and closer. But so this is a general order. So you're at like Hard Lucid, Hard Will, and then like, because that's party, and then Gloom is kind of seen more as solo, right? And then Darkanel, but that's because of the level restriction, basically. And then Angels, Guardian Slime is that's a beefy boy. But Slime is also getting some nerfs in the future. So basically, they're chunking his HP, and they're chunking something else as well. But basically, together with Hard Will and together with Hard Lucid, going to be brought down into the point of, because Gloom and Darknell were also changed now, right? With the falling speed of the orbs and no more balls during darkness and Gloom and stuff. So they're definitely trying to make those bosses more accessible to the people who just, it sounds bad, but just aren't as good at the game. I'm including myself in that for a large part. Because those are just the people, for them, that was like the giant barrier. Like they got it to 50, but they couldn't really get much beyond that. And if you have like a level 252 character or something, Tenebris and like those harder Will and like Sea Slime bosses, they're just a little bit above your pay grade. Especially if they could combine that with a little bit of a lack of hands, they're just a bit too much. So they made it easier to get up to 260, added 6-job, and then nerf those bosses a little bit so that everyone can now enjoy those things. So way more people, probably the people who are already good are going to be soloing those things harder, and the people who weren't are going to reliably be able to do pickup groups now and actually clear it, rather than maybe fail and lose their run because it counts as a run for your week, and then you're another week without drops, because that kind of sucks. And then you get into Hilla, all of the C10A bosses. And then, there's going to be a bunch of them added here, right? Because of all the difficulties. So there's going to be easy culling and hard. So we kind of put them here as well for the progression. So I kind of put them at the bottom. as kind of a rundown. But yeah, so basically you have like easy Kalos, hard Saren, easy Kaling, then normal Kalos, finishing Liberation, working on Oz rings, right? That's going to be important. We're finishing up FAMs probably. So a lot of people probably going to, once you get into like 280 something, leveling is going to be so slow, and it's mostly going to be from dailies. You probably want to go back to like finishing up your FAMs because you're going to have so much time. And comparative to everything else, your FAMs are actually going to do a big chunk of your damage. Then you have like Extreme BM, Normal Culling, Chaos Kalos. Like, if you look at those HP, it feels weird that Extreme BM and Normal Culling are like next to each other, but like if you look at the HP for these bosses, it's like fucking ridiculous. Any amount of sacred power you need, so you're time gated. But you know, you'll get access to more symbols, and the symbols are going to level a lot faster. I remember back in the day it was just like 5 symbols per area, right? Per day, which is a nightmare. And now it's going to be like 20, 20, and then 10, 10, 10, 10. So that's a far cry from 5, 5, 5, and it's like, good luck.
Yeah, that is very nice, actually. Having more symbols.
Yeah.
Less time gated.
I think a hard Saren is, Extreme Saren I think is like 7 times the HP of Extreme BM or something. So it doesn't like seem as, just the difficulty name doesn't really say enough about the whole thing. But yeah, this adds, it doesn't really add many more bosses. Actually, it doesn't add any bosses compared to now, but the difficulty levels, especially if you're like trying to do that duo progress, will give you a lot more chance of like, just by iteration, like, oh, let's see if we can do easy. Oh, we can do easy. Let's see if we can do normal. Oh, we got absolutely railed. Okay, maybe we need a small party for normal, right? Or we just keep doing easy. And the cool thing is, what they did add was, for the easy bosses, they added the drops that can get you into Eternal gear at half the speed, but still you can get into Eternal there, and then, you know, you can make a piece, maybe make an upgrade, and now you can, again with your duo or, you know, with another friend, then you can actually realistically make those steps, rather than, because now even from normal to hard lucid, the step is still significantly big if you're trying to do that in a small party or solo. So it'll make those steps a little bit more mountable.
Yeah, that is actually really nice. You can get Eternal from the easy stuff, even if it's slower, and that is extremely nice of them.
Yeah, it's to have the speed, but it's so much more forgiving. It makes people feel less like, you just have to run the rat race kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like easy lucid right now where you generally don't get anything from it.
Exactly. Yeah, easy is just 0. Yeah.
It's just nothing, not even.
If 0 was just 1 droplet and then normal was 2 and hard was 3 or something, because I don't like the RNG of it either, where it's like, oh, you could get 2, but maybe you get fucked. Like, I'd prefer it if easy was just 1, normal was 2, hard is 3, you know, and then you know what you're getting, and you can very clearly see the progress also in the difficulty of the boss and your journey towards getting arcane gear. But,
I feel like that also makes like solo progression easier too, like, because I know a lot of people enjoy doing solo progression, but I feel like Lucid's such a big jump from Lotus and Damien. I feel like it's a really big gap between the two of them. That
it's better now than it used to be, because in the past the golems in normal Lucid would take static damage, like max 50k per line. So the golems were actually harder in normal than they were in hard. They were a huge deterrent to soloing anything, because you'd just not be able to get through the golems. Like the web phase 3 will was basically P1 normal lucid, just the whole map was just golems, and you're like, well, fuck me, I guess. Nothing I can hit.
I do remember seeing that like a few years back, just seeing people like solo like hard lucid and hard will, and it was such a crazy feat back then. Like, oh my god, like this guy's 270 and he's soloing hard will. That's insane.
Yep.
And now a lot of people can do it now, but it's just time gated, so people just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and then you add in like Genesis weapons and the iframe on the weapon, for example, that can give you like an entire extra burst. If you just respawn, you get your seconds of invincibility, then you pop the G frame, then the Genesis iframe, and then maybe you can use like some will skill and then cleanse a little bit, because you've been immune. You actually get moonlight, so you can cleanse a little bit of webs, and then you can just squeeze out an entire extra burst, and then suddenly, you know, you could do 50% more damage from 2 to burst to 3, and now it's way more reliable to kill it, you know.
I remember seeing it. It was just like a suicide bomb technique, kind of like how people used to do Magnus. It was just kind of that hard will.
You just throw bodies at it until it.
That's all I remember seeing it. He just died, came back, bursted, waited, and kept doing that. And then it damaged, and would beat it.
Yeah, that's another good thing about the switches to like CPAP and HMAC to make it more like a forgiving boss fight rather than just have it be just wait for your cooldowns or throw bodies at it until you get frustrated and then die out because you thought you could do the last 10% with 10 lives, but then you realize that that's not a good idea. You should just wait for the cooldowns instead.
Yeah. Those were very nice changes. PAP is a lot more doable, even though DA still gets one shot by the clocks on the floor. But
oh yeah, I still die like during my weeklies to HMAX sometimes because like the hits will count as if I'm outside of the blue. So even though I do like 500% his damage, it'll just like not kill him. And then he swipes me one time in frenzy, and I'm just dead. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I just forget that I can duck those, I guess. But
yeah,
that's not the greatest thing.
Just DA things at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't need buff freezers anymore, so I just take it in stride and just respawn and kill him. So.
Oh, I love that changes so much. The no buff freezers is possibly the best thing they've done for bossing in a very long time.
The best part about it isn't even saving the money; it's not having to go into cash up for them. Oh. That's the, or not possibly forgetting them. Like that's the best part.
I dreaded the cash up. You just crash.
Yeah,
I just dreaded that.
It was too high of a chance. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll do my weeklies and be like, well, I already popped my my G skill, so I can like risk crashing now, or just go in without buff freezers, and if I die, I just rage quit, and then I pick option 2, and then I have to rage quit sometimes. A few things I did want to mention. Again, very similar to the session from 2 days ago. Like, I do want to. So in most cases, because of where damage comes from, you typically want to prioritize the critical damage in the Legion grid over the boss damage.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially for the arc, because you have some. You build up quite a bit of boss damage when you're bossing versus when you're standing still, right? Because of the charge spell amplifier and everything. That's like 100% extra. Conversion overdrive is going to add a bunch. So I would go into the critical damage over the boss damage, and then eventually once you get closer to 8k Legion and everything, then you'll fill up the boss damage eventually. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing was, I did see that in your hyperstats, you've got level 14 here in IED.
I put it into a calculator, and that's what it spat out at me.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, yeah.
Kind of what I'm running right now, but 14 is very high, but definitely should do it again, because...
Yeah, you've got a 20 and a 15 IED, right?
Yeah, because I have a real Dom pendant, so I lose 9% crit rate from the fake one.
Yeah.
And that real one hit 17 star yesterday, so I'm going to switch it out. So I need to fix my hyperstat to regain that crit rate.
Exactly. Well, I think the main thing is just that is there because you don't have full superior set, right? You need the...
Yeah.
You'd be able to buy.
Yeah.
And you don't have any lines in your WSE. Like, if you had one line there, then it'd be easy. And then you wouldn't need this. But it's mainly once the superior set is complete, then you basically go to something like, I don't know, it's going to be probably something like 6, 12... like 11, 11, 12 or something like that. That's probably something that you want to eventually go to. That's like a good vibe in terms of amounts. Like the attack power is probably going to be lower. You typically don't want to go like over 5 or 6. If you can go over, that means that all of the points passed, if you add all of those points together, that's probably like another point in damage or in critical damage instead, or in boss damage instead, and that would net you more damage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you do like your throwaway points. Like, yeah, I'd say like 4 or 5 is probably the highest you want to get your attack and your stat until you're like floating like 13, 14, and like the next time you can level up is like a year from now. Yeah, then you can get your attack or your strength a little bit higher,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, but it screamed calculator at me because no like person will automatically be like, oh, I need this in 14, but this is more like what a calculator will say. And it's probably true because I see your ID with it is at 94, so it's probably correct. But yeah, when this spouts out, like you want to have like a little bit of an alarm bell go off and be like, this probably means that I need to get more ID from other sources instead, and it's probably more efficient to do it that way because this is the comparative advantage here is like being undercut heavily because that 14 that could be like 12, 11, 11, 12 or something, and then you're losing out a lot of relative damage. I didn't see for the DA where you had it at, but DA has kind of like a similar thing where the ID is very high, right? But that's because the functional ID is high because of Netto Slice, so you don't need to go as high in the stat window, and your shields get double IED, It gets applied twice.
Yeah.
And your execution has a built-in 30%
Yeah.
on top of it as well. So you can go pretty low on the IED for the DA to still functionally have high IED. So you don't need to go as high. 10 is, of course, pretty cheap, but past 10 in the hyperstats you almost never do.
Yeah.
But yeah, crit rate is a bigger problem for this guy than IED is. You just save one problem and then you just make another. So
yeah,
it's just whack-a-mole with the with the hyperstat.
The crit rate is brutal sometimes.
Yeah, early on.
Sometimes.
That's why when the Lynx and Legion thing, that's why I have the crit rate like as number 1, just because some characters is just so dire. And you need your critical damage to apply. That's just like one of your biggest sources of damage. So if you don't have this applying, then so you need that crit rate. And DA needs like all of it. You're probably slamming full links to even hit that 100, right?
I think I am. Yeah, I know I have to switch my grid up to almost like full crit rate to get the 100. Like I have to move like 6 characters into crit rate.
Yeah, nice.
It's a lot.
Got like a different setup for that, or do you move that every time?
I should have a different setup of that. I think I have a picture of it. Let me see if I have it. I can probably just send it to you.
Did you work with the like the grid solver before?
I have, yeah. The left side was with the grid solver, and the right side is kind of just me messing around with it and kind of moving things back and forth from crit rate.
Right, if I had to guess, I would that would have been my guess. Yeah, the left side looks like clean block, and then the right side is like just slam it in there. It doesn't also it also doesn't really matter if it fits beautifully perfect as long as it's within the lines.
Yeah.
Not trying to grade your coloring book here. That one's outside the lines. Yeah, right. Yeah, you just slam some things up top to get to 100. I
just slam it into crit rate. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're already again almost at the 2-hour mark. But I think we got through your questions. Was there anything else that you were thinking about? I think you'd need my opinion on.
I think it was one small question on DA. So it's on Frenzy. Do you think level 30 Frenzy is worth learning to play on, or should I just consistently always play on 29 and below?
So I just went for 29 personally.
Yeah.
If you go do a boss that's just like really, really difficult and you're just dying to literally everything, you can start with 30. But it's not that huge of a difference. It's more like a little bit of an extra training wheel. You're already like with a Rune Force Shield, so if you can learn it with Rune Force Shield and with 29, then you're already in the hardest scenario. But it'll truly depend on how far you push this character. I've survived like 1 or 2 runs now, kind of like on Saren with 29 and RFS. So like that's with these boomer hands, that's kind of possible. So. Yeah, I kind of believe in like another Dragon Ball Z comparison, I guess, is like training with the weighted clothing, and then if you can almost do it like that, then you can still switch it, and then they'll tip you over the edge to actually be able to clear. But if you could do it like that, then it comes to like the match between the boss getting easier with more survivability, but then getting harder because it's longer, versus if you're stronger, the boss fight is shorter, and then it becomes easier because there are fewer situations that can kill you because the boss fight doesn't last as long, right? It's hard to find whatever that exact tipping point is. But yeah, if there's like one attack you just can never survive on a DA, might be worth switching. But it'd be worth switching the RFS out before it'd be worth switching out the Frenzy out, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's good to know then, yeah.
Yeah, if you're thinking about like whether you want to get the Frenzy to 24 or 25, some people think about it that way. But then I realized myself, like, but you can just level up a skill slot to 4, instead of to 5, and then just switch it over and be like, oh,
that's what I've been recommended,
Yeah. I told to a few people, and then they were like, oh, yeah, of course. It's like one of those dumb things that you're like, I was thinking about like 24. Yeah, of course, you just, get it to
switch between the two, Yeah,
exactly.
That's what I've been recommended.
But yeah, that's very rarely. Like in the beginning, I did for Black Mage, and in the beginning, I did for Saren. But then I'm just like, I've got to just like see if it's possible and just practice it on 29, and just get better at that, and then yeah. If you can't do it, you can always switch back. But if you can do it, then you're good.
So it's just better to practice with the 29. That's mostly my question. Like, is it better to practice on 29, or should I learn on 30? 29 makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's just impossible,
Makes a
you
lot
can
of
always go to
sense.
30. Yeah, I would do that.
Okay.
More
that makes a
damage,
lot of
baby.
sense. Yeah. Significant amount too, if I'm right. Pretty good chunk.
Yeah, pretty good chunk, and yeah, it just keeps your HP lower, and again, a higher risk, a higher reward. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's our play style.
And I think the one last question I had was
Mm-hmm.
about Arc's node. So
Yeah.
my Arc has everything boosted except for the Gust Drive and the Scarlet Drive to like 60. But I
Mhm.
have a node that has those two on it. So it'd be my 6 nodes and it would boost them up both. You can probably even see it a little below in like the menu. Um
You gotta have one extra
is
now,
it
though, right? Because there should only be one that's not.
well
You gotta be triple
I
boosting one right now.
I am not actually because on this one, well, I'm trip boosting Ominous Nightmare. Actually, you're right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So if you
yeah.
squeeze in, usually what people do is either they don't fully max Unstoppable Impulse or Scarlet,
Mm-hmm.
and then max out the other ones and keep it at 5. Now, so I've never gone for the 6 personally. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a lot of strong advocates for going for 6, just because there's so many things that are good for Arc, and we just keep going and keep building, and then you keep adding special nodes and everything. Because the total, because you get only one out of it, right? So 30% final damage on one of your skills that is not typically used too much for damage, versus something that will boost your entire gameplay or give you more survivability, or, you know, yeah, it's pretty low. It's pretty low on the list. So I would look first to like bring in the second gust into whichever you're triple boosting. Yeah. And then maybe after 260, you know, once you have all the slots available, then well, for us now it's 280 right? Or it's 285. When do you have all the slots now, guys? Oh no, it's 300, right? And then after New Age, it'll be 260 when you have all the slots available. So then you might suddenly have enough space to just slam it in, basically.
Just slam. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's only a third of a value of a boost node versus even like decent advanced blessing. I'm like, I'd rather have 20 attack on everything all the time than have 30% final damage on one of my skills that I only use when I combo weave, and then a lot of times it malfunctions. And just because those skills are mostly used to reposition rather than to damage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you throw it in there for culvert or something, you know, if something else isn't really necessary. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you need more slots, I think, because you still have.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I still have Overdrive to put in there and like Advanced Blessing and Will as well.
Yeah. Yeah, especially once you get an arcane weapon, then Overdrive becomes really, really nice. But yeah, you want to level it, and then you want to level the Goddess Blessing. Those two together, it's still. I think if I tap my Goddess Blessing, I get like 300 weapon attack or something. No, or 500 because of the percentage scale. I don't know. It's something ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
Was it 800? I don't know. It was something nuts. Yeah.
Just
it
lot
sucks.
Of boost notes.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. It is. It's a lot. Yeah. It's on the higher end. There's some classes that have it worse, but most of them have it way better. Like the DA, you could basically get away with one set of trios.
Yeah, kind of what I'm rocking right now. The DA.
Yeah. Like later mobbing, you want your, 1,000 swords to be boosted and everything, but it takes so long before those things don't already one shot. So skill nodes like your frenzy will have a lot better time gaining value. Okay. Is that
should be all my questions?
Okay.
I feel like I asked a lot of arbitrary questions.
I mean, if they're important
like
to you, then
like that.
Yeah.
I feel like the game is kind of just like that because it's all case by case, honestly.
A lot of it is, yeah. There's some broad strokes, but yeah, depending on how much you play and what your goal is, and if you have if you're trying to duo things, well, yeah, now you want to see things through different glasses, through a different light, for sure. But yeah, I hope you and your duo partner can keep progressing. Best of luck with Will, and hopefully you can get into the hard bosses soon. But yeah, I would say have that conversation about how long are the runs and how long do we see ourselves doing this in terms of going for the extra weapon or not. There's definitely a power spike there to be had, but the arcane, jumping towards arcane is ideal, right? Then we're talking about skipping those jumps and then getting more efficiency from your money.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot about like this kind of just upgrading and kind of where to aim my target next, essentially where to keep pushing towards, which is what I was really looking for.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the commands will,
Hmm.
always be updated and everything, so keep an eye on those if you're ever wondering about a topic, stuff like that. And if it's outdated, then just yell at me, and then I'll have to update it. And then maybe like 6 months later, I'll get to it. Uh, some things have been on the wait list for a while. Richard,
Yeah.
Richard is going to type about transfer hammering and transposing in chat right now. He's probably typing his message. um, but yeah, I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully Sixth Job brings you all the joy in the world, or as much as it can. And yeah, good luck with you and your duo partner.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your help.
All right, no worries. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, so in some ways, a very similar session to 2 days ago in terms of the state of the first character, right? We're looking for that drop in Mesogear combination. Emblem secondary may be improving a little bit, but also very different. More trying to play multiple characters at the same time, more doing duo progression rather than with parties or with guild or through the bossing menu. So similar but different. And that's how all of you guys are, like there's you're playing the same game, but we are trying to set different goals and we just have different ambitions in there. So if you were more in this path of progression, hopefully this session showed you a little bit of the nuance and the differences. And if you were just in the general stage of the game, hopefully you saw similarities with the last session, but maybe some differences based on where he already got versus where the last person got. So these sessions are generally paid sessions, which you can buy my time for, but you can talk about anything. Mostly game related, but you typically talk about almost anything. If you need like specific boss help, we've also done some duo bossing in the past with someone just trying to learn a boss and get better at that. You can also request these sessions through. This session was requested actually through the Twitch chat. So if you're a subscriber there, which is pretty cheap, and you just watch the stream, then you can just request sessions for free. So that's a more budget-friendly way of doing it. And the most budget-friendly way of getting one of these sessions is leaving a comment saying that you enjoyed the hell out of the session, of course, first of all, but that you would like to win one of these sessions for free. And please include your Discord name so I can reach out to you. This is for reboot only. Sorry, I should have specified that. I saw a comment on the last video. I was like, I'm in Barra, and I would yeah, I don't know my non-reboot stuff. I haven't played in 10 years now, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how to advance in non-reboot. Free to play, exclusive in reboot. So yeah, if you would like to win, please leave a comment like that. If you need any of the resources, use the chat over there in the top left. Twitch.tv/Scardor. This is where I stream every day. So drop by with any questions or leave them as a comment on the video, and I will do my best to get back at you. Or Stakona hates TTV will drop 4 comments. I'm looking forward to those comments, bro. Every single video. I need those. But yeah, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one or live over on Twitch. Thanks for watching. Bye.